Hey church, hey, it's our midweek video. We're back, Easter week, and we are in the multi-purpose room. Hey, remember this place? The place where kids, I'm sitting where you would normally be if you're watching this, kids, and where we eat together, where we won't be doing our pancake breakfast this week, and we won't be doing men's breakfast. We would have been done doing that on Saturday, but it's still another place, another familiar spot, and we're missing you still. And we'll keep saying that. But we're still having lots of contact, and I appreciate the conversations I'm having. People reaching out to me, people reaching out to Jason. We're trying to reach out to you. Our wives are doing the same. And you're reaching out to each other. We want to keep encouraging you to do that. It's really good just to have these kind of midweek, midpoint times of just connecting a few little things to kind of touch base on. With the Easter week coming up, or no, we're in it. It'll be a little different. So we're not going to have a specific Good Friday service video. So, you can be creative with that, but there's lots of resources. Maybe that's when you do choose to watch one of those Easter videos, movies like The Passion or Jesus of Nazareth or Risen or the Jesus movie or some of those ones. And if you are in need of finding those, let us know and we can kind of give you links or provide links. You can probably Google them all, but that's an opportunity. You could do communion together as a family or in your household or just by yourself. You could Zoom that with someone if you want to do that kind of a thing. Just again, a reminder, we're doing Zoom for our men's prayer. And so if you want to be included in that, let us know as well. That'll be tomorrow morning. I'm not sure when this video is going to be going out, but that's ongoing as well. So let us know what's going on with that. But some of the things going on, I was talking to Gerald and Robin Martin, and they were prayer walking their neighborhood. That's something they're doing as well right now, just be in contact with their neighbors, making connections. But as you kind of think of your Easter week end, be creative. We'll do our part. One of the things hoping to have is we're not going to be able to meet at Maple Ridge Park for our sunrise service, but I'm hopefully going to film something at our place and have that out to you as well. And there might be a couple other things in there as well. I think Robin Fraze is helping with worship this week, we're really excited about, and we're trying to kind of continue to roll that out with creativity. A couple prayer points that I just want to put out to you, just as an FYI. Steve Legace's mom passed away last week, so can you be praying for Steve and Marie in this tough time? Even with the social distancing, all those kind of things, being on your own, not being able to kind of gather around and like we normally do to support, but we can still support in prayer and maybe a call or an email or those kind of things as well. Oren and Adrian Malako there, Oren's mom is in hospice, and we need to be praying. It's a tough time for them as a family, so let's be praying for Oren and Adrian and their extended family and that as well as you're going through this time. Ross and Marilyn Napier are a family that used to be a part of our church, and they haven't been around for a bit. For those of you who have been around for a while would remember that. They, for years, brought their grandson Caleb to church with them for lots of years. Anyways, tragically, Caleb passed away, 18 years old, within the last week-ish, couple weeks. So just be praying for Russ and Marilyn in this time as well. We're just trying to, put that out there. This isn't for gossip fodder. This is for prayer. And so they need our support right now. And as well as just something came to mind, Darren Weens texted me today earlier that he is going into quarantine because of his work situation. He may have come into contact with someone that has COVID. And so he's going into to quarantine. He's not worried and he feels fine, but let's be praying for Darren. But Jason and I were just talking about this. If you find yourself in that boat and you find yourself going into quarantine, or you might feel you have COVID, or you've been diagnosed, or all those kind of things, let us know so we can be praying and supporting you and finding out ways of doing that as well. So, all right. But I'm going to turn it over to Jason, and he's got a word to share with you. So good to see you this week, and we'll look forward to seeing you Sunday.
What's up, fam? Hope that you are doing well. Not even, I don't like that phrase, as well as can be expected, or other things like that. I hope that you're doing well, period. End of story. I want to just kind of share a little bit more from, well, not a little bit more, but a little bit more from the hip, maybe, but share from my heart today. If you have your Bible, you can turn to Matthew chapter 11. And we're going to start at the end of the chapter in verse 28 there. I was thinking a little bit this week of one of the things you might not know about Carolyn and I is we are kind of mission trip. I'm not going to say necessarily junkies, but enthusiasts maybe sounds like a better word. Carolyn has been on 10 missions trips in her life, and I've been on 9, and we have each only repeated the same part of the world once. So Carolyn's been on 10 trips to 9 different places, me 9 trips to 8 different places. And we have either led ourselves or been leaders on 5 of those trips. And one of the interesting things to me is on every trip, there seems to be a breaking point for almost everybody. People who are really engaged, mostly we've done youth missions trips or been youth on missions trips, but there is a bit of a breaking point on almost every trip. And it doesn't matter how many trips we go on, there's a breaking point. We deal with it differently. I hope we grow and we learn to deal with them differently, but there is a breaking point. And I was thinking about breaking points kind of over the weekend a little bit. And I know for some of us, I've joked with some people that those of us, myself included, might be a surprise, are introverted by nature. Like this is an amazing time. We're being responsible by staying in and not socializing and those kinds of things. And for others, it's like, man, I hate this. I got to get out. I want, you got maybe some cabin fevers type of stuff going on. But there are lots of different breaking points. We've talked in these midweek videos about pressure and about what that kind of looks like or what that means. And a lot of times we hit a breaking point. And yet Jesus, he talks about these things. And sometimes when we for those of us who've been around church, the Bible, listening to teaching a lot, there are some big things that particular scriptures really emphasize, or they get emphasized with particular scriptures. I've always been a fan of subtleties. I try to look for the things maybe that, just the little thing maybe that someone didn't see, and I try to think about that. And so Matthew 11, starting in verse 28, verses 28 to 30 are some pretty, I think, familiar verses, but there's something, a more subtle part that kind of caught my attention. So let's read. Jesus says this. He says, "Come to me, all who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you shall find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my load is light." I think a lot of times when we talk about those words of Jesus, we're talking about times when we're feeling a lot of weight. There's a lot of pressure. We just feel a lot, maybe. And we wanna come and we listen to these words, "Come to me, all you who are weary and heavy laden." And we want to just offload. We just say, "I'm done carrying this, Jesus. You take it. I quit. I'm out," whatever. And we want to walk away from that heavy load. But look at verse 29. Jesus says, "Take my yoke upon you." So there is something there that Jesus has for us. But it's these next words that really caught my attention. He says, "Learn from me." I think for me, since I've grown up in the church, one of the dangers is that I can assume that I know. I assume that I know what Jesus is talking about. I assume that I know what Jesus means. Yeah, Jesus, I know about that. I assume that I know even what Jesus is working on in my life. And yet I need to ask myself the question I have felt I need to ask myself recently is, what am I learning from Jesus? Jesus says, "Learn from me." And then he describes his teaching style, gentle and humble in heart. which means Jesus isn't the guy who's going to shout at you from the sidelines, "Hey, what are you doing? No, I said go left, not go right. Come on, get off the field here, come here." He is not that guy. He says he's gentle. He says he's humble in heart. I guess the challenge here is, what are you learning from Jesus in the midst of all of this? I know sometimes, we can turn to really good teachers. We listen to good teaching. We read good books. And those things are all extremely helpful, I think, in continuing to stir different things in me, continuing to teach me about who God is, about the ways that God works, about his kingdom, those kind of overall things. But I ask us, what are we learning from Jesus? It is God, the Spirit, the Holy Spirit in each one of us who believe. What are we learning from Jesus? I have always had a fascination with the Gospels, primarily because I want to learn from Jesus, from the man himself. And I'm not discounting anybody else. I've had so many good people in my life physically, books, teachings, all those kinds of things. But what am I learning from Jesus? I really hope that one of the byproducts of a time of isolation like we are experiencing is that we each get to know Jesus better than what we knew him as before. And I think a lot of times it's just like any other relationship. It is about spending time. It's about trying to understand a heart, not just looking at replicating actions or copying somebody. Do you understand Jesus' heart? Because I'll tell you something. Too many times in my own life, I've made the mistake of thinking that what Jesus wanted to teach me was a particular skill or to how to get a job done correctly. But I'm going to let you in on a little secret. What Jesus is most interested in with us is our character development. He wants us to be something, not always about doing something. The doing is important. Please do not misunderstand that. The doing is important, but the doing needs to come from the being. Jesus came to save us. His resurrection is proof that he is able to save us. But what he is doing in our lives, that's something very different. And I would even encourage you to stop and to think about, Jesus, what are you teaching me in this moment, in this season right now? What are you teaching me? The last thing I just want to share is one of the things that I found a little while ago, and something that God really kind of one of those life lesson realities. 2 times in the New Testament, there's a repeat of a verse, but in different books. The first one comes in James chapter 4, verse 10, and then the second time is in 1 Peter 5, verse 6. James 4:10 says this: "Humble yourselves in the presence of the Lord, and he will exalt you." 1 Peter 5:6 says, "Humble yourselves, therefore, under the mighty hand of God, and he will exalt you at the proper time." The thing about humility, even the thing about what Jesus describes his own teaching style as gentle and humble in heart, here's the thing with humility. We either humble ourselves and accept the teaching that Jesus is giving us, or we're going to get humbled. Mm-hmm. And I tell you something, that second one feels awful. And I say that as a guy who has had to be humbled because he refused to humble himself many times. And it's awful and it's painful. It's also still good because Jesus is still the one doing it, and he is trustworthy to do it. But I want to encourage us to humble ourselves and to expose ourselves to what is Jesus teaching us right now. And what what do you need to do with that teaching? Whatever he is teaching you right now, I know it is to help you. I started this talking about breaking points. One of the other things about breaking points is that when Jesus is the one doing the breaking, it is always to lead us to a breakthrough. It's never about the breaking point. It is always for breaking through. Carolyn and I were talking this morning as I was kind of sharing with her some of this stuff. And man, some of the kids that had breaking points but failed to follow through, they didn't get the breakthrough that they were looking for. And it shows. I have to be honest about that. It shows. But some of those kids who had breaking points received the teaching that Jesus is bringing them. They have had crazy breakthroughs in their lives. And I stand back and I'm just amazed. God, wow, look what you did with that person's life. I look in the mirror and that's what I see as well. The times that I received Jesus' teaching brought me to breaking points. And that breaking point is usually the end of myself. It is a place where I go, yeah, I can't do this. This is not happening in my own strength and my own power. And I receive the teaching that Jesus is giving and I learn from him. Learn from him. And it leads to breakthrough. Thanks for watching.
Yeah, it's a good word. And it's interesting. I think it was John Martins texted me last week and was just saying, like for some of us, the breaking points are because we have so much time. But there are a whole lot of other people, like some people working in the hospitals. Some people are working so much right now that's a whole nother level of breaking point. And so wherever end of the spectrum you find yourselves on, there's opportunity to grow in all of it and the pressure that we feel. And yeah, it's a good word, and I really appreciate that, Jason, and the opportunity to grow. So, hey, you guys have a great Easter week. Just one more thing, we talked about this on last Sunday, but invite a friend to service. Share the link. People that maybe you would have invited to service or had spent some time with, and just invite them along and tell them to join us or send the link along. They can watch it on their own time. We'd love to have them be a part of what we're doing Easter Sunday morning. Look forward to those videos we're going to be sending out. It's going to be good to be with you. Like I said, Good Friday, we won't have a specific video, but there's lots of things that you could do just to make it a special day and a special weekend. So as you go through this week, just remember, he is risen. God bless you. We'll see you Sunday.